Welcome back, everybody. This is my awesome brother, Saahs.
Hello.
He's going to be joining us for this episode, and this is his first video ever made. So give him some love. He is the artist for my channel, and I'll put his Instagram right here and in the description below. But I first wanted to say, is there anything you would like to say about being the artist for our channel or about your art in general?
Well, for starters, with the art I've done so far for the channel, a lot of it's a lot more cutesy than what I usually do.
Well, yeah, it's because it's for me.
Yeah.
And as you can see, I'm a lot cutesier. So that makes sense.
In general, my art's a little more, macabre. It has a very, gloomy, Halloween-y kind of feeling to it. I really like spooky stuff. But I also do, a lot of luminescent glowing things, and I like to combine those into some pretty shiny, spooky things.
We're very similar in that aspect. Just in a very different way.
Very, very different way.
You're a lot more earth tony. I like those pretty vibrant colors, which I really like your lighting.
Thank you.
I'll get a video. He's made a really nice art piece up above us. I can't shift it right now, but I'll do it in editing.
Yeah, it's really nice. I'm very pleased with that.
Yeah, me too. It looks good. But I, unfortunately, can't show it to you right now. Well, I mean, I can, but future me can.
Hooray, future us. Hello, future us.
Hello, future people watching. So, today we're going to be talking not only about the inhabitants of Hell House, at least the first three, but we're also going to be hearing a bit about my brother's experiences from moving into the house and hearing about it growing up.
So, I'm sure you've heard about, at the time, we moved into Hell House right after our grandmother had passed. And for me, that was a very, disconnected time for me. So for a long span of living there, I pretty much ignored a lot of what happened in Hell House. But there was still a lot of it that I couldn't ignore no matter how hard I tried. And even the things I did ignore, it was still there. I still saw them. I just wouldn't look towards them, tried not to think about them. Just, I don't see it, it's not there.
I actually remember seeing you do a lot of that, and you played a lot of video games during that time period. It was a good way for you to just kind of focus on something that wasn't terrifying.
Yeah. There were some strange times in the backyard, though, but I think that's something that can be talked about in another time.
Yeah, backyard stuff will be its own little shaboodle. Was there anything that happened to you specifically because we moved into our dead grandmother's abode? I know you didn't have her bedroom, so I got a fair lot of that you didn't, but it was still her house. And there's that damn ticking. It never leaves. It's always there reminding me.
Honestly, I spent a lot of time in the room that I took, and I never really observed much.
You were pretty young.
And like I said, it was a really disconnected time.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I was very much more drawn to the woods than you were.
Which is saying something.
Mm-hmm.
So I was out there a lot.
You've said that you've had a bit of a wariness towards the woods, and a lot of the places that you've talked about not really going to a lot, like avoiding them, I went there a lot in my lone treks.
That makes me nervous.
Well, thing I was thinking about earlier was that time where you were just watching me covered in bugs, because that also happened a lot. Was I would just go outside to the backyard and lie on that cot and just let them swarm me.
Yeah, that was scary, but you've always liked bugs, so that wasn't that surprising. But
it was concerning. That is the only time it ever happened, was at Hell House.
Yeah, that is concerning. This first story is mostly his. I don't have much to say about it except for at the end. So, take it away.
So, I didn't start having immediate experiences with this thing. It started about maybe a year or so after our grandmother had died. And
that was about the time we moved in.
Well, I guess after we'd moved in.
Oh, okay.
After we'd been there for about a year, I started having more distressing dreams that were harder to distinguish whether I was awake or not. And eventually these dreams started featuring this white humanoid thing. It didn't really have a face. Its limbs were pretty spindly, but it was about the size of a regular human. And it would start crouching on me. And this is about whenever I'd first start experiencing sleep paralysis, which I still do to this day, especially if I sleep in the wrong positions. And ever since it first started appearing and doing that, and for the rest of living in Hell House and onwards into the next place that we lived in, and a little bit further than that, it was still there. It never left, and for a long time would still just sit on me and stare at me while I was half awake, half asleep, but couldn't move. Couldn't really breathe either. It was really hard to breathe, but I think that's normal for sleep paralysis.
Yeah, it is.
There was a time I drew it when I was around 13, I want to say, and it wasn't entirely accurate. I gave it facial features and some coverage because I was a kid and didn't want to just draw a nude creature like that. It was bony, was really pale, sickly white, and could never see the face, but looking towards it always felt wrong. Like, kind of sickening, a little bit horrific. There was nothing there.
Yeah, I remember feeling that when I saw it. It was about, I want to say 3 or 4 months after we moved out of Hell House. And we moved into a smaller apartment, so we had to share a room again.
Mm-hmm.
And my bed was opposite the room to his. It was the first time we ever slept in the same room frequently, enough for me to see it. And I remember waking up and looking over to you, and your eyes were wide open, you looked terrified, and this spindly white thing that almost looked like it was made of smoke, but it had defined lines, was just sitting on you. And it looked at me, and I got the feeling that it wanted me to go away, but I said no, and I got out of bed and charged at it, and it poofed away. Because I'm not about to let some thing sit on my brother while I'm aware of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
After we moved out of the apartment we moved into after Hell House, we moved to a different haunted house.
Hot house.
Yeah, the hot house. And it was still present there, but it didn't sit on me as much. It had by then moved into lurking in the closets and watching me. And in the apartment, I could just leave the closet shut. I couldn't see it then. But in the hot house, the closet I had didn't have a door. And it wasn't really a closet so much as the roof, the slanted roof, being made into a little room.
Cubby?
Yeah, a little cubby. And it would stand in that little cubby entrance and watch. And cause some other really unpleasant things.
Like what?
Well, it would start talking to me instead of just watching me, and it would instigate and provoke and honestly attack me through personal sensitive points that I was dealing with at the time. And it just got really nasty for a while without even getting like close to me.
You want me to beat it up?
Well, it doesn't really do anything now.
I'll punch it in its lack of face.
Yeah, so long as it just leaves me be, I don't think that's necessary anymore.
I'll punch it. The next entity liked to appear as two children, but I am convinced that it was one thing. There were never any deaths on our property, and given the clothing that they wore, there was no explanation for the timeline of when they should have been dead if they were a ghost. But demons are known to show up as children when they're trying to get you to trust them.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a fact that the children were there because not only did everyone in the house experience them, but so did guests and external relatives that would ask us about them pretty much constantly. And it got to be the kind of thing that you didn't really ignore, but you got used to a point of it not being that interesting at the time.
Yeah, sort of like piping in the house that's constantly noisy. It happened. You don't really register it's going on.
You would hear their giggles a lot throughout the house and the sound of splashing in the tub, but I mostly experienced them when I was in the bathroom. A lot of times when I was getting ready for school, I would sit on the toilet and take a nap, and it was always a really good nap. I love sleep. But more times than not, I would have a little foot or a little hand kick me awake, and I would see like a little toy truck on the floor, and then when I would wake up, they wouldn't be there.
I most often heard them. I usually hear things better than I see them supernatural-wise, but I would hear them muffled in my room. I'd hear them in the living room. I'd heard them in your room. And I saw some children now and then out in around like the front yard, but I'm not sure if those were the bathroom children or just some other children formed entities.
Were they blonde?
No, I don't think those ones were.
Okay, because our bathroom children were white blonde, both of them. The boy was older, and he looked to be about 4, 3, and the girl was about 2, and they wore matching clothes. The boy was wearing a little overall outfit, and the girl was wearing a jumper that matched in little denim, and it looked like the 60s, around the time that our family would have gotten the house, which makes no sense because nobody died in the house, and they thought I wouldn't notice, but I did. And I never saw them outside of the bathroom, but I saw them in the bathroom a lot. And you're right, you could hear them very plainly from my room because I shared a wall with the bathroom. And
yeah, I had some protection from the closet.
You did, but I didn't. And they never came out of the bathroom, but I would hear their little shenanigans all the time. But despite it probably being a demon, it never seemed to do anything harmful that I'm aware of.
It just seemed to want attention, really.
Yeah, and my biggest story with the kids in the bathroom involved my singing, because I love to sing, and at the time I was in choir almost religiously, to the point that it affected my mental health for a while. Yeah. And I would practice in the shower, and I would try to get as good a volume and pitch and emotion as I could into the songs I was singing so that I could practice. And the kids were always quiet when I would sing. And I liked that because I was a lot scareder when I was younger of the paranormal. I didn't really understand it yet. I didn't know like the different classifications between ghosts and spirits and demons and angels and all that. And singing kept them docile. But one day I took a bath and I had strep throat really bad, and I didn't have a voice. And I was running a fever, and I very plainly heard a little girl's voice ask why I wasn't singing. And I just said, I'm really sick. I can't sing. I'm sorry. And immediately I started hearing the 2 children's voices singing one of the songs that I very often sang in the shower. And I'm going to be honest, it made me cry in the tub because it was just such a sweet thing for an inhuman thing to do, to just know that I love singing and know that I was in pain and couldn't do it. So that day, the children sang to me. And that still to this day gets me a little gestimmt.
Yeah, that was always really sweet. I remember whenever you first told me about it, it was just, aw.
Yeah,
so sweet.
It really opened my eyes to the potential of having positive experiences with the paranormal and looking at things from a different angle. Because the bathroom was one of the places that had some of the least terrifying things happen, even though it was extremely active, just because those kids were so nice and they never did anything to hurt anybody. The worst they did was they probably fed off of the fear that other entities were causing, and they were just there to get a little bit of attention, a little snackaroo while they hung out in the bathtub. So I sometimes still miss those kids, even though they weren't really kids.
On top of hearing them a lot, I'd also see them a lot past the shower barrier. Sometimes they'd put their hands up on the glass, and I didn't sing as nearly as often, but now and then I would sing, like especially when I started showering, and it got more peaceful, a little more quiet during those times. But like I said, I didn't sing as often back then, So usually I was in the tub accompanied by the sound of little footsteps tromping around in the bathroom, something rolling across the floor, a little bonk against the tub. Honestly, I remember sitting in tubs for hours whenever I would take a bath, just to see what kind of noises would happen. And sometimes it was just kind of an entrancing time, just sinking into the semi-silence.
Oh, well, I guess I
Sucked
know
you
what they
in.
were doing then. That little demon sucked you in.
Well, mystery solved. We did have different paranormal experiences.
Well, yeah, that's why you're on the show. We get to see a different side of Hell House by having you on here.
Yeah, a lot of things did react to us vastly differently.
Still do. People do too.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like we're two different people. Whoa. I did not like this guy.
Mm-mm.
No, he was mean. And I remember my mom talking about seeing him when she was a teenager. I also don't think he was a ghost. As I said, no deaths in the house. So he also didn't act like a ghost. He was actively menacing and would go out of his way to try to infiltrate your bedroom and do things out of the ordinary to catch you off guard. And that's not ghost material. And just the sheer amount of hate that he exuded just didn't really feel like a ghost. But he was known to stand in the hallway mostly, but he would stand in the doorways to the bedrooms and menace the family members. And one of his favorite things to do was to torment our friends who would come over to try to stay the night and make it so they were afraid to go through the hallway to go to the bathroom or out to the living room or to the kitchen to get a snack. And he was an active problem.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of repeat sleepover buddies.
Yeah.
He was a problem.
I only had a few repeat sleepover buddies, and I think that eventually whittled down to one who started having me go over to her house instead.
Mm-hmm.
They all kind of stopped wanting to put up with the paranormal goings-on of the house. But the man in the bowler hat had a very impressive mustache and a brown bowler hat, like the round hats with the little brim, and a brown ill-fitting suit that looked to be like 1920s, 30s. And he just had this angry glare, and he would just stand there with his arms to his side and glare. And you would only see him kind of like out of the corner of your eye. And if you looked at him, he would disappear. But the second you looked away again, there he was, glaring at you. And if you got up, he would follow you so that he could continue glaring at you.
Yeah, it didn't really matter where in the house you were. If you were able to see in the hallway with the peripherals of your eyes, he would be there. And personally, I kept my door shut anytime that I was in it, and even then I could still feel him standing at the doorway, just peering through the door. And a lot of the times, if like there was a light on in the hallway or somewhere else illuminating it, I could almost see, like in my mind's eye, where he was standing.
Like a shadow?
Yeah, it was really distressing. I put things in front to cover as much of the light as I could, because because no amount of coverage could block it.
Yeah, I always tried to keep that hallway light off because he would cast this deep shadow.
Mhm.
Even if I shut my door, I could see like his feet underneath the door. But I took an opposite approach than you did, where you tried to hide from him. I kept my door open and I would glare back. Like straight up. I did some weird things to get him to feel uncomfortable and leave me alone. And I took a more aggressive approach with his antics than you did. I just wasn't going to put up with it.
I just wanted to be left alone.
But I also didn't want him standing there where he could see me through the door, but I couldn't see him. So I very rarely kept my door shut unless someone was staying over and they just couldn't stand him. But I would rather see him there and have the control to see him back than to know he can see me and I can't see him. And to this day, I dislike him. I think he's a douche canoe. And if I could go back and tell him what for, I would. But a different family lives there now.
Yeah, you can't break into it anymore.
No, someone else bought it and they've got kids, and I'm afraid to contact them about all the paranormal stuff I experienced, because if they're not experiencing anything, I don't want to scare the bejesus out of them. But if they end up seeing this and recognize Hell House, I am open to being contacted. I'm sure you would recognize your own house. Hopefully. But I'm not going to reach out to the current homeowners because I want to keep the peace of their own lives. And hopefully if they end up trying to research haunted houses, if they are experiencing anything, they can find me and
get some help.
Get some help, yeah. Or at least an opinion of someone who lived there for a very long time. But as I said, I'm not going to contact them. That could be very detrimental to their peace of mind. And I don't want to do that to someone. So I will just keep that all in a little tight hidden spot in my brain.
Secret spot.
A secret place. And not worry about it. Not going to write the letter that I want to write.
Was he the one that would also mess things around in your room?
Yeah, mess things around in what way?
Like, you'd have it in one place and then later it's on the floor, just missing entirely.
No, that was Radio Ghost.
Oh!
Which I will talk about in the next episode of I Was Raised in a Haunted House. No, Radio Ghost, who was also not a ghost, but I didn't know that at the time when I gave him his nickname, was the one who could get into my room and would mess with the electronics, move things around, stuff like that.
Go for many of my things.
Yeah. But, no, the man in the bowler hat was never allowed in my room because of my friendship with Radio Ghost.
Okay, because I lost a lot of things, and I didn't really do much other than blocking my door.
Sorry.
I was not magically inclined back then.
If it helps, I lost a lot of things too. Like, there's so many things that house just consumed that I don't know how they disappeared, other than we had some haunted activity, some paranormal happenstances that I really, really, really wish I could go back to now and investigate as an adult who has a better understanding of what's going on, because there were so many things that I still have questions about that I want answered that I just don't know that I'll ever get answers for because our family doesn't own the house anymore, which is just so sad.
Maybe someday. Not necessarily owning the house, but getting a chance to.
Getting a chance to go inside again. That'd be nice. I'd never want to own the house again. It was terrible.
It was horribly placed.
Yeah.
Not even concerning supernatural things. It was just not in a good place to put buildings.
No, all the buildings around and all the houses were falling apart because of all kinds of things with the bedrock. It was a bad house, bad plumbing, but I want to go in again and see with my adult eyes the things that I experienced as an inexperienced youth. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to click the like button. And if you want to see more of my content, be sure to subscribe. Let my brother know that you enjoy his art in the comments so that he can be inspired to continue making these adorable cuties. And I will see you next week with more writing tips. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I have not chosen. But it will be about writing, for sure. And after that, we will be back with more Inhabitants of Hell House. Bye! So adjust your jaw. Take a deep breath. And here we go. Welcome back, everybody. Whew.
Ooh.
Doing all right?
I am obviously much more raspy than you.
That's okay.
I'm a little sway swab.
That's all right. You know, I'm the one who's actually got the channel. There's a reason you're the artist. And the fact that you're coming on this episode with me at all is really sweet. And,
I'm glad that you want me on them.
well, yeah. Not just the fact that you lived there too, but you have talents that make my videos a lot more... Don't sell yourself short just because you're not the one who's been practicing doing videos. Because I do this every other week and have been for months. You're doing just fine. Just fine. Sad we can't have a cat in here.
You want me to kidnap one?
No. No, there are some issues with filming with cats that I don't think this video needs to be bogged down with, like Steve wanting back out of the room, or wanting this to be the birds, though that would be cute. This video is already going to be longer than the others, so they've gotten a lot of Steve content lately. I'm sure one video without Steve is fine. And he's not very sociable today. Whew. Next, we're going to be talking about the kids in the bathroom.
Oh, those little brats. Little munchkins.
Yeah.
Such a nice little room.
You did do a really good job on this room.
I can't wait to put up a tapestry up there.
It's coming.
It's on its way.
Yep. At least it's coming from like California, so it doesn't have to worry about that boat stuck in that.
Oh man.
Relevant topics.
It's loose now.
It's loose. I did not hear that. That's
Hooray!
good.
A toast.
A toast.
Yes.
I think it's funny that we had to take up old 1700s trade routes around the African Horn to get shit around.
And then like 2 weeks later, oh, it's fixed. We're good.
We live in
It's
a
fine.
modern age.
And they're like, a fourth of the way there. God! How mad would you be? I'd be pretty mad.
I'd be pretty mad too, especially if I got caught up in like a storm on the ocean, which I'm scared of. I won't be taking any boats across the ocean. No.
It's true.
I'm not as afraid of lakes. The Lake Superior will eat you up.
The legend lives on.
From the Chippewa on down. Big lake they call Gitchagumi.
It's one of my favorite songs.
Me too. It's long, but it makes me feel a sense of gloomy sadness that I love. So, are you ready? Do you need to hit my soda? Yes, I know, my brother. I'm so glad you're coming on an episode. This is going to be so much fun.
I've never been recorded and posted out there before, other than I think like con-related shit.
Well, that's changing today.
School theater doesn't count.
School theater does count. It doesn't count in the sense that there's a live audience. And here, the audience is in that little box. Right there.
Bing.
High five. Yeah. We did it! Don't swallow that.
No, what?
Ugh, the sound of it going against your teeth.
It is a pleasant clink.
So how'd you like doing your first video?
It was fun, but also very nerve-wracking.
Yes.
I feel like I was a bit too silent and robotic.
No, it's okay. You were fine.